Ladies and gentlemen, you are the inheritors of that entrepreneurial tradition. We in government are at your service. We hope that during the 3 days we will be together, we'll achieve these three things. One is gain a clear picture of Osun as an investment destination for its educated and enterprising population, with more reliable grids supplied, electric power, than any other part of Nigeria. Proximity to major markets, cultural attractions, business-friendly government, to name but a few. Determine the areas within these sectors of the economy where Osun can accelerate your business while we together contribute to Osun's growth and development.
In a bid to put Osun State on the path of economic growth and prosperity, the state government organized a 3-day Economic and Investment Summit. The summit, which took place at the Aurora Conference and Event Center in Oshogbo, Osun State, Nigeria, ran from Tuesday the 19th to Thursday the 21st of November 2019. The objective of the summit was to share with critical stakeholders the economic roadmap of the current administration of the state and showcase investment opportunities to both Nigerian and international investors. The event had guests from different walks of life. The Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, was represented by the Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, the Executive Governor of Osun State, Alhaji Adigboyega Oyetola, who is the chief host, and his wife, Mrs. Kafayat Oyetola, Deputy Governor of Osun State, Mr. Olugboyega Alabi, Speaker of the Osun State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Timothy Oweye, Chief of Staff, Osun State, Dr. Charles Diji Akinola, Honorable Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Sunday Dari, former Deputy Governor of Osun State, Chief Mrs. Grace Titi Laoyekbonle, and her husband, Engineer Tunde Bonle, the Chairman by Courtney Group of Companies, Dr. Wale Babalaki, SAN, and Mr. Tunde Kilani. Royal fathers present included the Oni of Ife, His Imperial Majesty Oba Adeyeye Enitogunsi Ojaja II, the Owa Obokun of Ijesha Land, His Royal Majesty Oba Dr. Gabriel Aromolaro II, the Ataoja of Oshogbo Land, His Royal Majesty Oba Jimo Oyetunji, the Aragbiji of Iragbiji, His Royal Highness Oba Abdurrashid Ayotunde Olabumi, the Orogun of Okela, His Royal Majesty Oba Adedokun Abolari, the Olowo of Iwo, His Royal Majesty Oba Abdurrashid Adewale Akombi, among many other important personalities. In the opening remarks of the chairman of the Osun State Economic Summit Group, Dr. Charles Akinola, he said the summit will help reposition the state from a civil service state to a major economic hub in the country. Dr. Charles also encouraged prospective investors to meet with designated government officials for proper documentation.
The summit has been conceived with two critical objectives. First objective is to share with critical stakeholders the economic roadmap of the current administration. Two is to showcase investment opportunities in the state to both Nigerian and international investors. We shall be guided by these two objectives in the course of the 3 days of the summit. On our own part, we have carefully selected some of the best in the various sectors to form the crux of the panelists and resource persons at this summit. We have also deliberately included some of our distinguished citizens and local entrepreneurs to provide not just a local content, but a mix of perspectives to enrich deliberations and forge new partnerships. And without any doubt, we can safely assert that we're privileged to have assembled a world-class team of influential business leaders that I see in this room today, investors, policymakers, and thought leaders for this summit.
To officially declare the summit open, the Executive Governor of Osun State, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola, thanked everyone for coming and assured all that their investments are safe. He said the gathering is not only to showcase the developmental agenda of the Governor Oyetola-led administration, but also to cultivate new partnerships with investors. The governor added that the event is also to fulfill his promise to the people of Osun State, which is part of the 10-year State of Osun Developmental Plan, as listed in his manifesto, stressing that the plan rests on 4 developmental pillars, namely economic development, infrastructural development, human capital development, and environmental sustainability. The governor also listed 3 critical areas investors can look into in order to drive the agenda.
This summit is thus not only a very special opportunity to share our administration's developmental agenda with the world, but also to showcase and cultivate new partnerships to drive our economic growth and development. This event also fulfills a promise. When our administration assumed office almost a year ago, we pledged to build on the phenomenal gains recorded by our forebears and to urgently chart a new course, a new pathway to economic rejuvenation. Our vision of the future is clear. Our goal to achieve inclusive socio-economic growth is rooted in our 10-year State of Osun Development Plan and in our manifesto. Our plans rest on 4 developmental pillars. 1, economic development. 2, infrastructural development. 3, human capital development and security. And environmental sustainability. As part of our process to prepare for this summit, we embark on a painstaking profiling of our economy with our resource partners by identification of growth opportunities across sectors and the development of strategies to optimally drive our economic aspirations.
The moderator of the first plenary session, Mr. Basen Omofaye, TV host at Channels Television, called up the panelists to the podium to speak about leading the pathway to economic growth and prosperity. The first speaker, the special advisor to the president on ease of doing business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who represented the vice president of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, gave her view about Osun State. She commended the southwest states, particularly Lagos and Osun states, for their strides to make the states more economically viable.
Just yesterday, we were in Ekiti having a Presidential Enabling Business Environment dialogue session for the Southwest. The Southwest is doing very well indeed on ease of doing business, led by Lagos State actually in the rankings. If we were to look at the World Bank's doing business as a flagship. But I must say that State of Osun is one of the states that we've paid particularly close attention to. The NIPC Investment Toolkit Readiness for States, this state was the very first state to get that accreditation, I believe last year, and has been taking the issue of ease of doing business extremely seriously. The Reform Champion is a regular feature at our meetings in Abuja, and has been following the processes with the due diligence. So it's actually one of the states that we're quite interested in, and that's why I had to rush here from Ekiti as well. That's really why I was nominated, but it's a pleasure to be here.
The second speaker, Mr. Oluwadedayo, who represented the Honorable Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Architect Olamileko Adegbite, spoke about the efforts of the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development to educate miners on the hazardous effect of mining on farming. He said the ministry is determined to train miners on how to go about their businesses without having to deplete the environment.
A few of the things are in conflict with what the ministry does. I also believe that the ministry and the government needs to get together so that we can put things in parallel. In terms of the artisanal miners, it's very laudable. The government at the moment has a program where we're formalizing all the artisanal miners. Now, beyond formalizing it, we want to train them, because what you have is a lot of the miners are mining in the fields, and when they finish mining, they leave all the fields very hazardous. So what you have is, you have a deteriorating environment, which is why we are trying to get involved more in terms of ensuring that once the mining is finished, we cover it back and ensure that the farmers can go back to these places and continue to farm.
The third speaker, Mr. Volker Trechel, who is the lead economist in the Office of the Chief Economist and Senior Vice President of the World Bank, said Nigeria is a major hub for mining and also has good experience in agriculture. He suggested that mining should be made digital and that adequate facilities should be disbursed for proper production. He talked about the distribution sector, which includes transportation and distribution of end products, which is also a major concern for investors. Mr. Volker Trechel suggested that railway transportation, which is cost-effective and efficient, should be employed.
If you look at even this room here, right, there are three sectors that stand out: mining, agriculture, and tourism. And those are enabled by those sectors that are also mentioned in the room: infrastructure, trade, and commerce. Now, coming to mining, Nigeria has a tremendous potential in mining, and including also Osun State. And one of the main factors that we find there that is constraining it is the question of availability of equipment, right, that is used. And in this context, right, leasing, right, it plays a crucial role, right? Nigeria has had very good experience in leasing in a number of, in the agriculture area as far as tractors are concerned, right? There is a company called Hello Tractor, which has been very successful. Expanding the leasing framework is going to be absolutely critical to make mining better, more widely available.
The next speaker, Dr. Wale Babalakin SAN, first asked all to change the mindset that government must source for money for projects. He stressed that the mindset is unrealistic since resources are limited. Dr. Wale Babalakin added that the government should create an enabling environment that will make it interesting for the private sector to thrive.
One of the things we must get out of our mindset, and very quickly, is that government does not have the resources to fund major infrastructure. The way to fund major infrastructure is to create an enabling environment that will make it interesting for the private sector. PPPs are contracts that last for a very long tenure. So the investor must perceive that the state will honor agreements that are entered into, and this will span several governments. This attitude must be inculcated in all public servants. The PPP is a logical imperative. I was in Form 2 in Government College Ibadan when Ibadan, Oyo, Ogbomoso, Ilorin road was awarded. If I had been in the civil service, I would have retired 3 years ago. I haven't spent 35 years in the service. The project is still under construction.
The next speaker, senior advisor to the government of Madagascar on investment and economic development strategy, Ms. Manisha Dokone, said Osun State is a business-friendly state, rich in resources. She said to attract investors, some key things need to be put in place. She mentioned people's health, attitude towards investment, and business friendliness.
When we're looking at attracting investment, we need to look at all these soft environments. So for instance, your people, how are they, how healthy they are. And then all those other infrastructure, as you said very rightly so, the attitude towards investment. And many of those things in terms of the attitude, it's a lot of change to be done by the government itself, or the people within the government. We've had a lot of problem. I come from the country of Mauritius, and we've had lots of problem with people from the government to try and change this attitude to make them be more business friendly. But in some way we've succeeded, because Mauritius is now first in Africa and 13 in the world in terms of doing business. But apart from that, it's very, very important to look at those attitudes. And the change needs to come from all those people that are around you, and that for them to start being more in that can-do attitude, and also in terms of the attitude that we can try and resolve the problem. Not everything is a problem.
In the remarks of the sixth speaker, President of the Africa FinTech Network, Dr. Segun Aina, he commended the Executive Governor of Osun State, Mr. Adegboyega Oyetola, for organizing the summit. He spoke extensively about the use of technology and how it can reduce unemployment and drive economic development.
The lot that we can use technology to change our lives and so on and so forth. Talking about FinTech Association of Nigeria, which is comprised of ecosystem, people in the ecosystem in 9 sectors. We have most of the banks are there, all the top consulting firms, Deloitte, PwC are there, universities are there, University of Ibadan, Nsukka, FUTA, Babcock, Unilag. I don't think any university from Osun State that are members. We have investors, local and international investors, insurance companies, the media channels is there. In fact, Bosin is a member of the Governing Council of the FinTech Association of Nigeria. So it's an ecosystem to drive financial technology, deepening of financial technology in Nigeria. But where is Osun in this, and how can Osun benefit from this? Africa and Nigeria generally Africa is a youthful continent. About 19 years is the median age. The same thing in Nigeria, about 18 years is the median. And we are talking about technology which is used and patronized mostly by people in what we call the Generation Y, people born from 1981, up to 96. That's about people about 35 years, and they consider about 60% of the population.
In the remarks of the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, Mr. Sunday Dari, he said the major facilitator of development is access to good roads and transportation. He advised that attention must be paid to investment in youth development through ICT.
Last week, I launched what was called DEAL, D-E-E-L. The central focus is that we need to empower our kids to make them more employable by giving them the digital skills that they need. And listen to the man from FinTech. Right now, there are over 200 digital tools that can be created. Survey has shown clearly that our youth are not employable because they lack digital skills. So we've rolled up a plan to equip 500,000 of our youth in the next 2 years with the necessary digital skills. When I leave this place this afternoon, I'll be stopping over in Odeomu. We have a youth development center in Odeomu. In the last 3 years, we've trained close to 1,000 tailors, fashion designers, and other vocational skills. In the next 1 year, we'll be opening 24 other youth development centers, and Osun State will get 2 additional ones. Also, we're working with Junior Achievement. Just last week, we signed an MOU with them. They're turning over to us 64 digital skills hub donated by IBM and Microsoft. And I think 2 of them will also be sited in Osun State. Finally, last Saturday, I was invited by the University
of Technology, Ladoke Akintola University of Technology in Ogbomoso, to deliver the annual alumni lecture. I was asked to speak to constructive youth, the Nigerian project, and sustainability. I think all of what we're discussing here, we must build in a sustainable model for it to endure. At the end of it, I said the Nigerian project that should be our concern is investment in the Nigerian youth. And I think for Osun State, an investment in the Nigerian youth and the youth of Osun will be a wise investment.
The last speaker on the panel, Mrs. Osaisa Emontoga, who represented the Honorable Minister of Power, Mr. Saleh Maman, spoke about the power sector and described it as a major factor for development. She spoke about the introduction of a mini-grid policy where developers can collect power from distribution companies and underserved individuals can be supplied through these developers.
With the policies that the power sector is driving, commencing from 2015, the renewable energy policy, which will drive all the water, which will drive hydro, biomass, solar, wind in Osun State, which there is an abundance of. So the government of Osun State, in wanting to have an IPP as soon as possible, can consult with private investors, because the atmosphere, the investment atmosphere has been made conducive for private investors to participate and fund, that is, provide electricity for commerce. So as soon as maybe in a year, where a generation company, you can engage with a generation company to provide an end-to-end electricity from generation through to transmission, through to distribution, engaging with all the government agencies and for the ministry to facilitate, so that you have uninterrupted power, and investments and your economic summit should be what it should be.
In the response of the Executive Governor of Osun State, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola, he assured that agreements made with prospective investors will be kept diligently, and that the duty of the government is to encourage and provide an enabling environment for investors to thrive.
I've listened attentively to all your suggestions, comments in the area of ease of doing business, in the area of ensuring that we keep to agreement. I know my son is always emphasizing, Wale Babalaki, emphasizing the need to ensure that agreements are kept. I believe that is perhaps from his own experience about some of these other agreements. So I know I know the importance of ensuring that the rule of law prevails. I mean, you can't enter into an agreement and all of a sudden you decide to, renege on what you have agreed. That's not good enough. And again, like I said, we in Osun, we believe in the rule of law. Again, once experience the background of being a businessman myself, having been in business until I became a politician, so to say, I know what it takes to ensure that agreements are kept rigidly. So I want to assure all investors that their investment is safe. We're going to be talking about rule of law, and please, you can go home and sleep.
This was immediately followed by an interactive session, after which the panelists took pictures with the governor of Osun State, Alhaji Gboyega Oyetola. In the keynote address of Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, which was delivered by his representative, Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, he said he is confident that the gathering of private sector, foreign investors and government officials will yield positive results in the nearest future. He said it's imperative that Nigeria continues to make the right decision in terms of attracting long-term investment into the country and creating an enabling environment to do business.
The plan has identified and focused on many of the priority areas in the competitiveness pillar of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. The ERGP directly speaks to the hard infrastructure challenges as well as the reforms required to deliver an enabling environment for businesses operating in Nigeria to thrive under its competitiveness pillar initiative since 2016. Nigeria is now in its 5th consecutive quarter of economic growth. Economic prosperity becomes even more compelling for Nigeria as the most populous African nation in the world, and further projected by the United Nations to become the 3rd largest.
In his goodwill message, the Oni of Ife, His Imperial Majesty Oba Adeyeye Nitogunse, commended the organizers of the Osun State Economic and Investment Summit, especially the Executive Governor of Osun State, Mr. Gboyega Oyetola. His Imperial Majesty Oba Adeyeye Nitogunse added that all the ideas and suggestions made should be implemented to achieve results that would take Osun State to greater heights. Oba Adeyeye Nitogunse concluded with a suggestion that a compendium of success stories of investors in the state of Osun should be considered so as to attract prospective investors.
It's very important for us to know that it's critical for us as individual and group stakeholders. We should do our very best to support the current government in terms of what they're doing. We should portray the state in terms of negative impression. We should give our state a positive perspective of what is good and all the good things that can come out of a state. What we have in this state, we don't tend to see beyond our nose. We don't tend to see beyond what the state can give to us. What we are seeing is what we can take out of the state. And all what we will say is, Osun, state of Osun does not have money. I don't belong to that school of thought at all. The state of Osun is the wealthiest state in the whole of Nigeria, and by extension, the entire continent of Africa. I mean what I am saying.
In the goodwill message of His Royal Majesty Oba Gabriel Arumolaro II, he said he believes the summit is a wake-up call for the people of Ijesha land, who are richly blessed with gold. He encouraged the government of Osun State to utilize ideas shared so as to make the state of Osun a business hub of the country. A representative of UNICEF, Dr. Tusha Renin, commended the state of Osun for new development in all areas, especially with the 2020 budget. From Biscon Communications, we salute the Executive Governor of Osun State, Alhaji Gboyega Oyetola, on the successful hosting of the Osun Economic and Investment Summit.